So I used to be a really creative person, but logic and efficiency kind of took over. Recently, I felt the urge to reconnect with my creative side, so I picked up The Artist's Way. And wow, I did not really expect it to change me this much or have this much of an impact, but here we are. I'm about halfway through, but I'm seeing major changes in my creativity, just how I think about creativity. So I wanted to share some of my thoughts so far and how it's leading me down a more creative path. When I first read about morning pages, I was a little bit skeptical. Writing 3 pages of stream of consciousness thoughts every morning sounded like kind of a waste of time, but I thought I would give it a shot. And within a few weeks, I was noticing a lot of patterns in what I was writing about. At first, it just felt like brain clutter, just dumping out random thoughts, complaints, and worries. But I started to realize what was actually taking up space in my head. I realized I kept writing about this desire to be creative again. And I started to reflect more and more about how I used to love drawing, painting, arts and crafts. As a developer, it felt a little bit like debugging my brain, just kind of getting rid of what's not working and what's creating clutter. I was also able to trace errors in my thinking, if that makes sense. This would be any excuses or doubts that I was having. My biggest takeaway from the morning pages is that creativity isn't just about waiting for inspiration, it's about clearing up mental space in order to let that creativity flow. Another concept that felt a little bit strange at first was the artist states. This is where you go on solo outings just for the sake of inspiration and play. I'm definitely used to optimizing my time, so the idea of setting aside time for fun and without a clear goal felt very unproductive and unnatural. My first artist state was pretty simple. I just went to a museum, and instead of kind of rushing through things, I really took my time. I let myself kind of look at things without analyzing them, which felt good. Another time I just went into a cafe and spent some time doodling in a notebook, and it reminded me how fun it can be to just create without expectation. My biggest takeaway from the artist states has been that creativity thrives on curiosity, play, and exploration, not just structured work. I sort of went into this book thinking that creativity was something that you either had or you didn't, that creative people were naturally artistic, and logical people like developers, engineers, analysts were just wired differently. But the artist's way is showing me that creativity is more of a mindset and not a talent. One perspective shift that I had was instead of thinking that creativity was about making art, I started to see it more as a problem-solving exercise. The more I embrace these creative habits, the more I see new possibilities in my work and career. Creativity is something that you nurture through practice and not something you either have or don't. One of the biggest shifts I experienced was not only thinking about creativity, but taking it into action. I've started exploring web design, which is something I've always been curious about but never really pursued. I've created a few designs from scratch, just kind of messing around, experimenting with layouts, typography, different visuals, and instead of focusing on functionality like I do when I'm coding, I'm focusing more on a user experience. The process of designing feels so different than coding. It feels more intuitive and less about strict rules. and I really like that. My biggest realization here is that I don't just want to be a developer, I want to sort of blend design and development to create things that are functional and beautiful. Beyond self-exploration, I've taken an actual step forward in learning graphic design in a more structured way. So I've enrolled in a graphic design class, which I'm really excited about. I wanted to move beyond just watching tutorials and get more hands-on experience with projects. Right now I'm at sort of a turning point. I started the Artist's Way thinking it would help me pursue art as more of a hobby and reconnect with my creativity. And instead it's really making me question, what if I build a career out of this creativity? I used to think of myself as a developer, but now I'm considering roles that blend design, user experience, and front-end development. I don't really have a clear-cut plan, but I know that I want to focus more on creating rather than problem solving. For the first time in a while, I'm feeling really excited about my career direction and not just practical about it. It feels very freeing to acknowledge that my path doesn't have to be so black or white. You can definitely mix design and development to find something that suits you. I am going to keep designing and building a portfolio to showcase my work. I'm going to apply what I'm learning from my graphic design class to real-world projects and keep reading The Artist's Way to push through doubts and creative blocks. As I finish the rest of the book, I have a few intentions in mind. So I want to commit to morning pages even when I don't feel like it. Morning pages have been incredibly eye-opening for me, but I know their power really comes in sticking with them consistently. Some mornings I feel like I have nothing to say, but once I start writing, I always uncover something unexpected. I want to pay more attention to the recurring patterns in my morning pages, themes that come up, and things that I'm maybe resisting or am drawn to. By the end of the book, I'm hoping to have a more clear idea of where I want my creative career to go. My goal here is to treat morning pages as a daily debugging tool for my thoughts and creative blocks. Next, I want to try to get more out of my comfort zone with my artist states. Most of them have been pretty low risk, just going to museums, browsing bookstores. I want to try pushing myself to do things like painting sessions, taking different classes in person, go on more visual inspiration trips like photography walks, and work on creating without a purpose in mind. My goal here is to make myself more comfortable with being a beginner again and just let myself play. One of my biggest takeaways from The Artist's Way so far has been that I'm limiting myself in ways that I didn't even realize. I used to dismiss certain interests like graphic design and web design because they didn't fit neatly into my logical career path. The book talks a lot about recovering lost dreams, and I want to be intentional about revisiting the creative pursuits that I used to love. Instead of worrying about whether something is practical or logical, I want to first follow curiosity and just trust that it'll lead somewhere. So ultimately, I want to say yes to creative impulses without overanalyzing them. Another big one for me is going to be finishing the exercises, especially the uncomfortable ones. There are a few exercises that I've skimmed over in the book because they just felt like too much to answer at the time. But I plan on going back and really engaging with them because I feel like they will have really powerful insights. So I'm fully committing to the process, especially the weird, uncomfortable parts. One of the biggest surprises about this journey has been how much it's already changed my career perspective, and I'm only halfway through. Right now I'm really excited about web design, but I want to stay open to other possibilities that come up. Maybe I'll end up in UX UI design, front-end development, or something completely unexpected. The most important thing is that I'm following creativity again, and I don't want to put limits on where it can take me. To conclude, the Artist's Way has been way more transformative than I thought it would be, and I'm really excited to see what happens in the second half. By the time I finish, I hope to have a stronger creative routine that I stick with long term, a clearer vision of how I integrate that into my career, and more confidence calling myself a creative person again. I am planning on doing a follow-up video for when I've finished The Artist's Way, but if you've read it or are currently reading it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I know people come from so many different backgrounds, so let me know what your biggest takeaway has been. And if you've been trying the morning pages, artist states, let me know.